I didn't plan to go there that day. I didn't pack an overnight bag or bring flowers. I didn't even call ahead to announce myself. I just drove. No music, no air conditioning. Just the sound of the road and the question in my gut I could no longer ignore. I had dropped Mira off with them 2 nights earlier because Sabrina said she needed a break. And I understood that. Parenting isn't easy, especially when you're doing it half alone, even when the other parent is still technically there. But that morning, I woke up with a pressure in my chest. Not quite panic, not quite rage, just something wrong. And I've learned not to ignore that feeling. When I turned onto the cul-de-sac and saw their driveway half full, I parked out on the street. It wasn't out of habit, it was instinct. I needed distance. A breath of air between their kingdom and mine. As I walked up the walkway I poured concrete for 6 years ago, I couldn't help but notice the new wind chimes hanging on the porch, cheap brass, clinking like bells at a mock funeral. The front door was slightly ajar. That was the first sign. Margot never left the door open. It was always about appearances. With her, always perfect, always locked out. But today, that door was cracked. Like the lie they'd been living had finally slipped. I didn't knock. I walked in, slow, quiet. Every step carried the weight of 1,000 compromises. I had paid for this house, not just with money, but with silence. With nods when I should have spoken, with patience when I should have pulled Mira away years ago. But I stayed, for family, for appearances. For Sabrina, I stayed. Because leaving felt like giving up on something I swore to protect. But that oath had grown brittle. And then I heard it. That voice. Margot's sharp, unbending, wash the dishes well, useless girl. I froze, mid-step. The sound slammed into my chest like a thrown plate. There was no gentleness in her tone. No mistaking it as an offhand remark. That wasn't frustration. That was disdain, pure and practiced. Then came the laughter. Shrill, teenage, unbothered. Alyssa and Harper, Clarissa's twins, sitting on that beige leather couch I had helped pick out, the one I had delivered the same week Mira was born. I walked forward, my shoes silent on the polished hardwood I paid to install, and there, in the kitchen, stood my daughter. 6 years old, barefoot, wearing an oversized apron that dragged at her sides. Her tiny hands trembled as she gripped a sponge nearly the size of her fist. A tower of plates loomed above her. Her arms stretched high, trying to scrub, with the kind of desperation I've only ever seen in adults, clinging to jobs they hate. She was trying to prove something, trying to be good enough, trying to earn her place. That's when I noticed her hair was still in the braid I did the night before she left. No one had even bothered to redo it. And her glasses, too big for her face, were slipping as she leaned forward, and the chipped stool she stood on, it wobbled under her weight. Every time she reached for another plate. Behind her, Alyssa scrolled through her phone. Harper chewed gum loudly, and neither looked at Mira, not really. They looked through her, past her, like she was furniture. And the worst part, Mira didn't look upset. She looked resigned. She looked like this wasn't new. Where was Sabrina? That question stabbed deeper than all the rest. This was her family, her parents, her nieces, her blood, and Mira, our daughter, stood there like a maid, like a burden, and she was nowhere to be found. Margot didn't notice me at first, too busy instructing Mira on how to stack the plates. Without water spots, Ronald walked past in the hallway, glanced toward me, barely acknowledged my presence, just grunted. Didn't ask why I was there, didn't seem surprised, just muttered, "She's not like Clarissa's girls, no manners, no manners." Mira says, "Thank you" to the bakery cashier. She whispers, "Excuse me" in hallways. She apologizes when she sneezes in church. I stood in the doorway of that kitchen and took it all in, the chipped tiles I'd offered to replace, the peeling paint Sabrina insisted didn't need touching up, the fake fruit bowl on the table. That had more presence in this house than my child, and I thought about every single payment, every check, every transfer, every missed weekend trip, so I could cover their property taxes. Every nod I gave Sabrina when she said, "It's just temporary, until they get back on their feet." They hadn't gotten back on their feet. They built a throne on my back and put Clarissa on it. Mira was just a servant in their castle. Margot finally turned, saw me. Her expression didn't change much, a flicker of surprise, quickly masked by politeness. "Oh, Julius, we weren't expecting you," she said, smoothing the creases of her blouse. Like that could smooth what I had seen. I didn't respond. I walked forward, gently placed a hand on Mira's shoulder. She flinched, then turned her head slowly. Her eyes met mine, wide, unsure. "Daddy," she said softly. A whisper. "That's enough," I said, just loud enough for Margot to hear, just calm enough. To signal finality, I took the sponge from Mira's hand, set it in the sink, and picked her up. Her small arms wrapped around my neck without question, without hesitation, like she'd been waiting for me all day. I didn't raise my voice, didn't start a fight. I turned and walked toward the front door, with my daughter in my arms. No explanation, no goodbye. Outside, I slid her into the back seat, buckled her in, kissed her forehead. She smiled, a tired, relieved kind of smile. Then I pulled out my phone, scrolled down to the number saved under Michael, loan officer, and hit call. "Michael," I said when he picked up, "cancel the payments, effective immediately." He didn't question it. He just said, "Understood." And as I pulled away from that house, the one I paid for, the one that housed everything I hated, I realized something with crystal clarity. They weren't just unworthy of my money, they were unworthy of my child. "Patience," I said. "It was love." I left the bank and walked 2 blocks to the cafe where I used to meet Sabrina back when we were still in love. I ordered a coffee I barely touched, and just sat with the silence, with the knowing I could imagine Margot sipping her tea that morning. Unaware, I could see Ronald in the backyard, tinkering with the busted generator I bought him for his birthday 2 years ago. Clarissa probably had no idea anything had changed. She hadn't contributed a cent in over a year, but still treated the place like her inheritance. And that was the funny part. It wasn't their house. It was mine. After Ronald's early retirement. And Clarissa's little startup collapsed under its own inflated sense of brilliance. They had nowhere else to turn. They needed someone to take over the payments. Sabrina asked, pleaded, said it was temporary just until things stabilized. I agreed. Because I believed in family, because Mira still played with Harper and Alyssa. Back then, because I didn't know better yet. So I paid off the lien, transferred the deed to my name with their signatures tucked between guilt and desperation. They never read the fine print, never asked questions. They were just relieved someone else was holding the weight. And now they were about to feel it all again, except this time